What is the American dream for you?
Well, I mean, first of all, America is the greatest human experiment ever created in the history of mankind. And that's what keeps us going, the ideal, that ideal. I'm doing great. How you doing, Jose?
Great, man. It's great to see you. You know, actor, comedian, teacher. You're a multifaceted man with a lot of dreams and dreams that have come true. You come from Colombia. You came here when you were 4.
Right. We immigrated to the U.S. When I was 4 years old. We moved to Jackson Heights, Queens, and we started off all living in one room. And then my parents, you know, worked their culitos off, and 3 or 4 jobs each, until we were able to move the next year into a house that had at least a room for them, because we had a Murphy bed, and that was our living room, kitchen, bath, everything was right there.
But when you got to that neighborhood in Queens, you guys were the first Latinos there.
Oh yeah, it was the beginning of white flight, and then all the Latinos moved in, which was beautiful. But I grew up with the whole diaspora of Latin, Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Ecuadorians, Chileans, Argentines, and it was great, man. I loved them all, and we had a great time, and I felt a great sense of community.
And John, you didn't see yourself reflected anywhere else. I mean, we just weren't visible, and kind of still not visible in a lot of ways. But talk to me about when you were growing up, who you would see as people like you.
Right, but it was crazy. I mean, the thing is, like, it's not like we just got here, man. We've been here for 500 years. I mean, we also are the only ethnic group to have fought in every single war America's ever had. The most decorated minority in each and every single one of those wars. That's a huge contribution. But you don't see that in any textbook that you're reading, in any movie that you're watching, in any newspaper that you're reading. So how do you give yourself a sense of self-worth? I didn't even see myself in comic books. I didn't see myself as a superhero or as a goofy Archie. I didn't see myself anywhere. So how does a child create their self-esteem and know that they matter? I mean, the messaging becomes the opposite, because you don't see yourself, that you don't matter, that you don't count, that you don't have possibilities. And it reinforces in others a way of saying that we didn't contribute, that we didn't participate in the great American experiment, but we did.
And you get to a point where you're actually successful enough, and even more successful because of, for example, Latino history for morons. How do you portray the reality on Broadway?
It wasn't easy. I mean, it took me years to figure out the right formula, because when I first started out, I had a lot of history because I was so excited by the history, man. It gave me a sense of feeling more than instead of less than. It made me feel like Latin. Being Latin was a superpower, because when I found that information, my first shows were all information, because I'm a ghetto nerd, and people were like, "I thought you were going to be funny. I thought this was going to be a show about your family. I thought this was going to be real good." And I was like, "Yo, I thought we like information. These are great facts about our people." So I had to make it more entertaining and more funny, and then I found the right balance.
So how is it that when you have these frustrations and you have this information and you have this desire, burning desire to let people know about this and say, listen, this is a reality. We are part of the fabric of American society, and yet people don't even see the tela. They don't see the fabric at all. And sometimes I think, like, I'm living in two worlds.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm living in a cultural apartheid, because New York City Latinx people are equal to whites in population, 35% to 35%. And yet we're less than 1% of the stories and staff at the New York Times, at the New York Post, at the New Yorker, at the New York Magazine. I mean, that's cultural apartheid. How is that possible?
That's in New York, brother. That's in New York.
LA is 50% Latino. And less than 3% of the faces in Hollywood are Latin, and less than 2% are behind the camera, and less than 1% our studio execs and telling our stories, that's cultural apartheid. And you know, don't tell me because we don't try hard enough or because we don't got talent. Nobody tries harder than Latin people with less access in this country.
Listen to this. 70%, and this is according to ASER, right? 70%, or nearly 350 companies of the Fortune 500 did not have a single Hispanic on their board. 70% do not have one. Only 4% of Fortune 500 companies have 2 Hispanics on their board. That's right. That's business.
Yo, if we're contributing $2.3 trillion to the U.S. economy every year, and if we were our own country, we'd be the 8th largest economy in the world or the 3rd largest state in America, then I want that percentage of that money to be our executives, to be the gatekeepers, to be the people making those decisions. You know, with 25% of the U.S. box office, I want 25% of the roles and stories being told in Hollywood, network, streamers, Netflix, Amazon. That's what I want. That's what's fair.
John, you start out in a world where you don't see yourself reflected, and then you actually go through the channel of comedy. How were you able to navigate that?
Well, because I was always really funny at home. and people, my dad, my mom, my brother always tell me, do that character, do that voice. So I started going to acting classes, and I was always the only Latin guy, but I had a lot of great mentors who appreciated me and knew that they knew that I was after something, and they nurtured me and took care of me. And then, you know, I started going to the comedy clubs because that's where the places were. And I wait online at the open mic nights at midnight. I catch a rising star.
How do you not give up?
I don't know what made me so tough to like not care. People rejected me. I didn't really give a darn. You know, I was like, I'm gonna keep doing my thing because I'm the only one who's boosting me. And if people reject me, that's their problem. I'm just gonna keep doing my thing till I'm good enough to you know, get where I need to go.
And then when you do get to where you need to go and you start seeing success, then you really kind of almost in a very strong, obvious way, just say, I want to be more who I am, what I matter about.
I just realized, you know, that Hollywoodn't was always going to be Hollywoodn't for me, you know, people who look like me. So I knew that, you know, because like early on in college, you know, I was in a class with a lot of big actors, and they were going to like 5 auditions a day, and I was going to 1 every 5 months. So I relied on myself. I started writing my own stuff to see myself, to show how we Latin people were, how we, you know, I did Mambo Mouth. And then boom, when that got on HBO, Latin people found me. And then when they found me and got into my theater and they started stomping and laughing and crying and call and response, you know, we had this chemistry. So I now had this audience that fed me and gave me the courage to keep going and to do more. And so, you know, then I do my next show, Spikrama, and even more Latin people show up, paying now, you know, $100 a seat to come and see me, and stomping and yelling and hooting and hollering, y diciendo, dale, John, dale. And, you know, that just fed me. It was like fuel to a fire. And so I knew they were hungry to see themselves represented. And I was dying to create the content for them to see themselves.
You just for the first time are directing a movie. You're also acting in it, Critical Thinking. It just so happens to be a movie about Latinos for the general public.
Well, I'm trying to even the score, you know, of having us be a little bit more than 1% of the stories being told by the media and the studios and networks. I found this beautiful story about 5 Latin and Black teenagers in one of the toughest cities in neighborhoods in Miami called Overtown, Liberty City back in the day, that in 1998 became United States national chess champions. And they did it for 5 years in a row. It was incredible. They had no supplies. Their public schools were defunded. And yet this one teacher and these 5 kids became regional champs all over Florida, then Florida state champs, and then to the biggest coveted prize of national chess champions. And
you decided to bring that to life.
And it wasn't easy, bro. It was 2 decades in the making. Nobody believed in the movie, even though it was an incredible true story. And even when I was pitching it to raise the money recently, a few years ago, you know, the studios would, with their Hollywood wisdom, you know, Latin people don't want to see Latin people. I was like, what? Latin people don't want to see feel-good movies. I'm like, what? I mean, it was crazy, man. It was like all this sort of like, they love the way it was written. They love the story, but they're not going to do it because nobody that looked like me had the power, wasn't the executive, wasn't the gatekeeper. So I had to raise the money independently.
Talk to me about your American dream. What is the American dream for you?
Well, I mean, first of all, America is the greatest human experiment ever created in the history of mankind. And that's what keeps us going. The ideal, that we are all born equal. We all have a right to happiness. America is still the great place where you can come from nothing and be somebody. It's not easy, and it doesn't happen for everyone. There's lots of people that look like me who had dreams and aspirations and talent and genius and gifted and didn't make it. What I say to my kids is, follow your dreams. Just find a dream, find a passion, and don't let nobody tell you no.
Have you achieved your American dream?
Oh, I feel I have. I mean, I still have a lot more. My dream is really big. So there's still a lot more pieces of that dream that I want to accomplish. I want to see a Latin studio. I want to see hundreds of Latin directors and Latin writers and Latin actors and us at the Oscars constantly every year and at the Emmys. That's all part of my dream.
John, we could and we must continue this conversation, but I've got to tell you, I can't thank you enough for the privilege of your time.
Well, thank you, man. It's so great to talk to you.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.